North Dakota. This is a Scribe's Journey with your host, Richard Polinelli.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of A Scribe's Journey. We've got a great show today. Our guest is B. Michael Stevens. He has his debut novel that just came out. It's called The Goddess Gambit. It's the first book of at least 4-book and maybe 5-book series. We're going to bring him on. Going to talk to him about his series, about how he became a writer, and how he kind of wanders the West Texas oil fields where I used to roam some 36 years ago before I got serious about my writing. So we should have a pretty good conversation with him. Let's go ahead and let's catch a really quick message. We'll come right back and we'll bring him on.
We are back here on A Scribe's Journey. It is time to bring on our guest for the week. And what he said is read his intro and introduce him. B. Michael Stevens writes science fiction, fantasy, and horror when he isn't busy working on his global escape plan. And I'm going to find out more about this. He lives in Texas with his wife and son in the Stevens House for Wayward Animals. I've been in a house or two like that myself. Published before in magazines and anthologies. The Goddess Gambit is his first full-length novel. He is currently working on book 2 of the No Gods, No Masters trilogy, as well as assembling a collection of previously published and never before released short stories. You can visit his website for updates and to subscribe to his newsletter at bmichaelstevens.com. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard.
Michael Stevens.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're happy to have you on. You are hanging out in Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is not your usual haunt.
That's correct.
It's life in the oil fields, and we'll get into that a little bit later because I used to do that 30 some odd years ago. So,
yeah, not much has changed.
Nah, I don't think it's pretty basic. You know, you poke a hole in the ground and see what comes up.
Yep.
All right. So now you have released your first novel called The Goddess Gambit. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
All right. Well, it's been a long time coming. I only recently decided to take this whole writing thing kind of seriously. In the beginning, it was just a hobby, and I really just kind of went into it without a clue of what I should be doing or how I should be working on it. And many years ago, I used to work out a lot, and I used to do martial arts and things like that. And I got hurt pretty bad. My knee got screwed up. And so basically I couldn't do that anymore. I was kind of depressed and I didn't know what to do with myself. So I started like, well, you know what, I'm going to write a book, and it was originally for my son, and it still is. And the front page is dedicated to him. And the Goddess Gambit and its sequels are all based on kind of like a choose your own adventure tabletop role-playing game that I did with my son when he was I want to say 10 years old, 11 years old. It was a while ago. And he had never done anything like that before, and it wasn't like hardcore, rules and dice because of his age. It was more like just hanging out in his bedroom when I'd come back from my hitch in North Dakota. I was in the oil field then as well, and it was just a fun way to share my love for role-playing games with my son, and he got to, okay, so his character in that game is the main character in the novel, John, and in the beginning, I just told him, I'm going to write this down so you don't forget it. I'm going to make it into a book for you, and it was all just for him. And as I started getting into it, I wrote the rough draft when I was working in West Africa offshore. I was on a platform, and I only had the one rig to look out for. I would be on that platform for 28 days at a time, and maybe catch, 2 or 3 or 4 at the most jobs, actual, a completion or running casing or something like that. And the rest of the time it was maintenance and inventory. And so I had a lot of free time. And so I would sit in my little cubicle there on the BBLT platform. You can look that up it's a Chevron platform off the coast of Angola. And I would sit there in my cubicle and I would just start plugging away at this story. And in the beginning, it was literally what happened in the game with my son. And I went to a writers conference in 2016, and that's when I really started getting intrigued at the idea of like, well, maybe I could actually do this. I should learn something about the craft. Right? Yeah, because I didn't have a clue. I'd always been a creative writer. Growing up, in high school and in elementary school, I wrote little stories here and there. But it doesn't make you an author, a writer. It was a creative outlet. So I was like, wow, I really don't have a clue. I started listening to these professionals, people who had, published books. I talked to an agent. I talked to an editor at that conference. It was a great con. It was the DFW Writers Con. And it made me realize how little I knew. And one thing in particular really stuck out. There was an agent, I can't remember his name, but he was actually a representative of one of the Big Five in New York. And he gave a little speech there, and I was in the audience listening, and he said, you only get one debut. And that really stuck with me. I was like, oh, man, I was like, I don't want to rush this. I don't want to just put it up on Amazon and, have it be full of typos or just have it be god-awful, I want to really try hard to do something good, do it well, and so I actually scrapped the entire draft. Managed to save maybe 10% of it. And I started over. And I realized, okay, wisdom says you really shouldn't make your debut novel, 300,000 words, You're not, you need to keep it a little smaller, and you need to have even though I was also told that, series, this is actually kind of funny because I've learned the opposite since then. But back at that con, these professionals were saying you can't sell a series. You can't sell a series. You got to be a standalone book. So I changed a lot of the plot based on from what it was when it was just a game that I played with my son. I changed quite a bit of it and made it hit on all thrusters more. Like the storyline structure. I needed to have the rise and the fall and the conclusion, and I wanted something that could stand on its own, but then still left the doors open for the sequels. And I think I accomplished that. I'm pretty proud of it. But I've learned since then that now series are the way to go. And so actually, I got done with this book a while ago, and I talked to Jason of Superversive Press. He's my publisher, and I said, "So it's done. I'm sending it to Logotexture to get formatted. Just updating you, boss." And he goes, "Okay, great." let's wait to publish it. What? What do you mean?
Yeah, those are words that will kill a writer.
Let's wait until you finish the third book. And I was like, the third? I'm not even done with the second, you know? But I now see the wisdom of that. And there's a lot of stuff to learn. I'm sure you know. The marketing side, it's not my cup of tea, but I'm going to just put on my boots and get it done. You got to do the work. And so I've learned about rapid release. I've learned about, you know, a lot of the books I'm enjoying as a reader right now. I've been binging on Richard Fox's Ember War series.
Mhm.
And I told him he needs to slow down because there's some other authors I'd like to read. You know, he's putting out books faster than I can read them. And but that's the thing. These books, these guys are pumping out these books that are, you know, 60, 70,000 words long. They're pumping them out once a month. Pow, pow, pow. And it's like, I see what you're doing there. I can't do that. I have a challenging job, as you pointed out. I work over 100 hours a week in the oil fields. And when I'm doing the production work, I'm on my feet all day. But now when I'm on the drilling side, I get to a location, they're running casing, and I'm not tired. I'm popping open the laptop and I'm working there in my truck. So that's how I can get. That's the only way I can get any writing done.
Yeah. I was in that situation back. I worked the oil fields 81 to 85, and we would have to drive 2 hours to get to location. So during that 2 hour drive, fortunately, I wasn't the driver, so I would sit over there with a notepad, with the little spiral notepad things, and I would write out what I wanted to do. And then when I had we had some downtime. You start converting it over to typewritten pages.
Right.
Yeah, you just, especially in the field that you're in, you've got to just, wherever you can find time, that's when you write.
Right. It was a lot easier when I was offshore.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I had those 28 days home, you know, and I had the 28 days while I was there, and I could just get a lot of work done. But unfortunately, that back then, I hadn't yet taken that step of really taking this seriously. I was just going to write it for my son and just give it to him. And then I was like, I could actually, make a little money off of this. Maybe share the stories with more people. I used to do a lot of role-playing games with my friends, and I've always been the dungeon master. I've always been the storyteller. And I enjoy that. But then I thought, I could take the same amount of work that I'm putting into these dungeons that I'm designing and these stories that I'm making for my friends, and I could maybe put it on paper and I could share it with a lot of people. And that's really what it's all about. I'm not looking to, realistically, I'm never going to get rich at it. I wouldn't say never. I mean, miracles happen, but it is something that you do because you want to. It's something you do because it's fun. And I just want to share these cool stories. I'm sure you can relate to that. You've got a brain full of ideas. Oh man, this is a cool idea. I just want to share it with people. And what makes my day more than anything is when somebody says, "Man, this is fun. This is cool. I really enjoy it." That's the next one.
Yeah, the best thing you ever hear as a writer is somebody. I just read your book. Somebody you don't know will send you an email, or they'll get on Twitter or something. Just read your book. Enjoyed it. It was a great story. Thank you for writing it. I mean, that's the greatest reward you're going to get. The money's great when you get it, but the money gets spent
on the next book. Absolutely.
On the next stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the money comes and goes.
Right.
The comments you get from readers, that's always there. I can relate. I have a guy I publish with, or I've done some anthologies with. I'll be doing my fourth one, and he just accepted that fourth one. And the thing he said was, it's the best story of mine that he's read. Nice. So it's like, you can't top that.
I really enjoyed Escaping Infinity, and I'm looking forward to When the Gods Fell.
Yeah.
The premise sounds intriguing to me. It has like a kind of reminds me of the old original Battlestar Galactica. You know, that one episode when they find that temple and everybody's dressed in white and stuff. So this idea of finding some almost a goddess, if you will, on Mars, and then learning. Now, I gotta check that out, brother.
Well, this is a series. It wasn't originally going to be until I got to thinking, this could be my Dune. So let's make a series out of it. And it took me a while to figure out how I can make it into a series. Having now figured out how this is going to go, I'm going to have some fun with it.
Cool.
So
is the audiobook coming?
The audiobook is out.
Is it?
Yeah, there's another. It's been out for a while.
Outstanding. Well, you got my next credit.
There you go. I've sold a book today. Yay. On Goddess Gambit, I want to read the book description on it. And before I do that, it's got 9 reviews already, and they're all 5 stars. So that should tell you this is a good book. I haven't read it yet because my to-read pile, if I could turn the camera, you would see it. It's up to the ceiling right now, and it's in there somewhere. I would promise I'll get to it.
No worries.
This is for the Goddess Gambit. It's published by Superversive Press. Something is wrong in the Ziggurat, a city-state fortress built to be a shining beacon of hope for the surviving remnants of the human race. The last bastion against the swirling forces of chaos. Home to John 310-257, a super soldier, born and bred to fight for the purity of the planet, to keep home safe, and to help bring about a brighter tomorrow under the honorable chairman
Aqaba Warback.
Thank you. I wasn't sure. A shadow now crawls across the land, a wrongness that runs deeper than the Ziggurat's vaunted goals. Esoterrorists have infiltrated the capital surrounding Shanti. They are traitors, criminals, sworn enemies of home and the safety it offers. Or are they? We need the bump, bump, bump. When John is contacted in the most surprising way by one of the enemy, he is unwittingly set upon a path that will challenge all of his assumptions and beliefs and will teach him what it truly means to be a hero for humanity. That sounds super cool, especially if it's a series.
It is. It is. And this is probably the book I should have waited to write. Now that I've learned more about the marketing side and of the business, but it was the book I had to write. It was for my son, and that's why when Jason said, can we wait to publish it until you finish the 3rd one, I said, yeah, let's wait and let's do it on February 22nd. Let's release it on my son's birthday, and it was the 10-year anniversary of playing that game with him. So. But it is the book I should have waited to write, if for no other reason, because it's genre-wise, it's kind of ambitious. It's not written to market, so I went against all that, wisdom that says, hey, pick a genre, read the genre, and write to market. I didn't do that. Because this was it's just the story that I had to write. It is what it is. I can't change it, and I'd like there to be a category on Amazon science fantasy, but there isn't. So when somebody says, "Hey, what is it about?" or what kind of book is it? And I go, "Well, it's a casserole. It's military sci-fi, but it's also urban fantasy." In the sense that you have a magic wielding goddess in the city, right? And then you've got these soldiers and their power armor and their mecha, and they're fighting aliens. So that's military sci-fi. But then you've got the urban fantasy, but it's not. It's not Dresden Files urban fantasy. No, it's got to be even more cross genre. It's set in a post-apocalyptic future in the dystopian setting of the Ziggurat. So is it a post-apocalyptic? Is it dystopian? Is it middle sci-fi? Is it urban? That's a little bit of everything. It's I can't think of a book. I can't think of a single book or that I can compare it to. Maybe Chris Fox's Magitech series comes close in the sense that he's got mages in armor, spaceships fighting dragons. That's about the closest I can come. I'm not as well read as I should be. I like what I like. I read what I read. So it was very difficult trying to figure out how to market this. And we're doing the best we can. But it's one of these things that I probably could have gotten away with better if I had done something first. If I'd written a series of military sci-fi and built a fan base or something like that, then I could get away with writing a book that is hard to define. I have an easier time pointing out role-playing games and video games that are similar to it, like Final Fantasy, Shadowrun, or Rift's role-playing game by Palladium, where you have magic and technology going toe-to-toe, and that's been a challenge, but it's been also pretty fun. I've had one reviewer said that it was a refreshing story, because he said he never read or seen anything quite like it. So that's the good and the bad thing about it. I think a lot of readers would enjoy it. Hey, this book, if you like Starship Troopers, you'll like this. But I don't know of too many books that are this cross genre. So I kind of buck to the conventional wisdom on that. But it is a wild ride. It's pretty cool.
But I'm seeing that more and more. You're seeing that mixture of the different genres, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's going to force Amazon and the rest of us to start expanding the categories that are out there. Like you said, there's no science fantasy. Maybe there should be. I think yours falls under that heading. I know you mentioned Escaping Infinity. Try to peg that one into a category. You can't. I can't. Whoops. Are you? You know what? I cannot hear you right now. Hang on.
I can hear you.
Okay, he came back. We're probably having some wonderful cable issues. But yeah, we're back. So okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think you just write your story and you just kind of let it roll the way it's going to.
Right. I think once this series is done, though, I'm going to regroup. And there is another book that you know what it's like as an author when you have a plan. I'm going to write a series or a book to market, and I'm going to have fun with it. But it's going to be, this is what I should be doing as far as a business decision. And then you have these little children, these stories that just have to be told, and they're going to destroy you if you don't put the time in and write them. Market be damned. You know what I mean? So I've got another one that I have to get out, and I'm not sure it's going to be another tough sell. It's I suppose you could call it Christian science fiction. I'm going to be trying to retell the story of Saint Augustine of Hippo. He's a early church father who lived when Rome collapsed. And so anyway, I'm going to write a story based on his life, but set in the future. And the collapse of Rome is actually going to be more of a a transhumanistic kind of apocalypse, where like a forced upload into an AI kind of a thing. So it's going to be fun. But then I'm going to start writing series to market and whatnot. I got some ideas, but that's a long ways off. I got to finish this series first. And surprise, surprise, everyone who already bought a copy up until maybe a week ago, the first 2 weeks or the first week, anyone who bought a copy of the book in the first week is going to have a collector's item, because it's no longer a trilogy. It is now a series. We're going to have a fourth book. And so it actually says trilogy on the cover but now if you buy a copy right now, the cover's been changed and it says series or saga. So, but yeah, the trilogy turned into a quadrilogy.
Hey, you never know when a new story in that universe you've built is going to pop up. When I wrote the Del Rio series, it was 3 and out. And I've already thought of book 4 and 5 if I ever want to get around to doing them. So, you just kind of plug along. Now, you have done anthologies before, and I went and checked. It looked like either seven anthologies or seven short stories that have been in anthologies or in a magazine of some sort that you can find on Kindle anyway. You're also going to be in go ahead.
On Amazon as well. Unfortunately, there's some that are only available on Lulu.
Yeah.
Small press.
Yeah, it is what it is. Now you're going to be in at least one of the planetary anthologies that Superversive Press is doing. I know that because it's Pluto, which I'm editing. The story is like so many paper lanterns, and it is, as I think about it, it's kind of a military sci-fi urban fantasy when you look at the elements of it.
Right.
And it's easily, right now it's your story and one other that's competing to be the first story in the collection. It's that good.
Thank you.
Having read Paper Lanterns, even though I haven't got to Goddess Gambit yet, I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy Goddess Gambit. But kind of walk me through, do you find it easier to write the short stories, or is it a little bit harder because you've got to compact an entire story into such a smaller space?
It depends on the story, to be honest with you. I've written some pretty short stories with ease, but every once in a while I sit down to write one. Like I was writing one for A.M. Freeman's charity anthology that she's putting out. I had all the intentions in the world of helping, because I like the idea of charity anthologies. I prefer it, actually, because I'm not going to make a lot of money on anthology anyway. You know what I mean? I'd rather the proceeds go to a good cause. And she asked for help, and I was like, so I had all the intentions of the world of getting a story for her. And I sat down to write it, and I was like, whoops, this is a novella. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I could cut it and force it, and it just wouldn't be good. It would, to me, it's not. Other times, you're like, oh, I got this. I think the simpler the idea, like if I eliminate all the backstory and you just get all that junk out of the way and you just write a scene, it can be quite fun and easy. And so all my previous anthology stuff is all horror. That's what I was originally a horror writer, and I don't really do that anymore. I certainly get gritty and dark. And there's some, like Ken Dickinson, he's the voice actor who's recording the audiobook of Goddess. He actually was talking to the other Superversives. We have a little email group, and he was like, yeah, this book's pretty messed up. He goes, he goes, my mom and dad are going to hear me say words and describe things that they never thought would come out of their little boy's mouth. He goes, but that said, it's done in the right way. It's still a Superversive book. It's ultimately good triumphing over evil, but I'm not afraid to go to dark places and get kind of gritty. But at the same time, I don't write the horror that I used to write. I've since converted to Christianity, and just not comfortable writing that kind of stuff anymore. Some of the stuff that's in those anthologies that you saw on Amazon is pretty gross, and it is what it is. That's where I was back in those, a couple of years ago. It was my way of. I was really into like the H.P. Lovecraft mythos, and it was my way at the time of coping with my disappointment in the world, the real world, society and the problems and stuff. So to be able to view everything through the lens of cosmic horror kind of just was like, well, kind of like the Tool song, waiting for the asteroid. It was, but now it's like, well, no, I don't really think of the world that way anymore at all. So.
I think that's just part of the thing of writing is you put a little bit of yourself into every book, every story. And sometimes when you write a story or whatever the case may be you're doing, it's going to reflect where you're at that time. It just naturally, you can't avoid it. If you were to read A Zombie Christmas Carol, you would understand I was not a very happy camper with certain people when I wrote that. But the message got delivered, and there you go. But 10 years from now, people are going to go back and they're going to look at that going, what was that all about? It's something.
Sometimes those little Easter eggs can be kind of fun and therapeutic.
Yes, they can.
You were wondering how to pronounce Aqaba Warback, who is one of the protagonists. Antagonists in the Goddess Gambit. He's not the chief villain, but he's one of them, right? And his name is an anagram of Barack Obama.
Okay.
I wrote out the name Barack Obama, and I cut the letters into individual letters, and I mixed them up on my desk. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but an M got turned into a W when I was shuffling it around, and I started moving them around with my hands. And okay, there we go. There's a name. I didn't know how to come up with a name. And two of the other antagonists in the story, who both get killed, are named after childhood bullies. So we get our revenge.
Yes, yeah, it's that old meme that you see floating around every once in a while. Yes, I'm a writer. Yes, you're in my story, and yes, I kill you gruesomely on page 79. You're welcome.
Yep.
You don't want to mess with a writer, because we will find our way to get our revenge and keep our hands clean.
That's right.
It's just part of the thing. I'm sure there. My God, my favorite writer is Edgar Allan Poe. That man had some serious issues working when he was writing, and he wrote some incredible stories. So
the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym's got to be my favorite.
Really?
Yep.
I for whatever reason am a big fan of The Raven. It's always been my favorite. So
Good
that
stuff.
and Morella, that was the other one.
Nice.
Love the way he ended that.
Well, the Arthur Gordon Pym tale ties in. I didn't know this at the time. That's how I got turned on to it. Was it actually? There's elements of it that tie to H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness, and some even think that they're set in the same place. The same, whatever Pym saw at the end of the story there, the white penguin and stuff. Lovecraft uses that, and so it's kind of neat to think that it's almost a prequel, or Lovecraft borrowed it and ran with it, and then it's kind of cool to think that they might have been in the same universe.
Yeah.
Fathers of horror.
You can have a lot of fun with that. The anthology I'm going to be in, that I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's taking H.G. Wells' stories, and you're creating a story based on whichever one of his works you want to work with. And mine is The War of the Worlds. Oddly enough, my story is set in Denver, as Wells' story is going on in London. And I just wanted I've always wondered, the aliens or the Martians did not just land in London, clearly. I know Wells thought London was the center of the universe. Newsflash, it wasn't. So there had to be other stuff going on. And so I wanted to set it in the American West and had some fun with it. It's nice to take the established universes from the past masters and see what you can do with it. And still manage to, you gotta stay true to it, though. You can't just rewrite it. Right. But that's kind of a fun thing for writers to do. And one of these days, if I live long enough, maybe somebody will take something I've written and run with it, and I'll have fun watching and see what they do.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be cool. Be cool. Now you've got coming up. Now I mentioned you're going to be in Planetary Pluto. Are you in any of the other planetaries?
No, sir. Yours was the only one I submitted to.
Ha! Take that, other editors. I got the good guy. So what? You've got a sequel coming up. What is the second book in the series after God?
The second book is called To Rule in Hell. Taken from the expression, "It's better to rule in hell than serve in heaven." That's what a villain, the villain of the book, says that. And it'll be coming out But it's done. It's ready. The only thing we're waiting on really is it needs to be formatted, and I'm waiting on the cover to get done. So we're looking at maybe a end of April, beginning of May release.
Okay.
Yep, and it's for those who've read the Goddess Gambit. I'm not going to try to give anything away, but one of the things that happens in that story is, John, as you read from the back, he starts out as a soldier fighting for the Human Republic, and the Human Republic is like the back cover said, it's the last bastion of humanity, and the world outside is wrecked. Okay, they call it the rough, and there's just nothing out there but wilderness and monsters, right? And the leader of the Human Republic, Aqaba Warback, he's on a platform of let's purify the world. The world was meant for humans and humans only. These other invasive species, as he calls them, don't belong here. So we need to get rid of them, And so John, he kind of gets on this trip, where he's a soldier and he's going to change. He's going to make the world a better place by getting rid of the bad guys. And he finds out the world's not so black and white as he once thought, and maybe not all the invasives are actually bad. Now, there's some gray area there. There are monsters. There are definite monsters, but then there's also aliens that are good. They're decent people, just like the humans, and they don't really deserve to be killed, right? So as he comes to figure that out, and he learns more that I can't really reveal right now without spoiling things, but basically there's this quest that he gets roped into, and by the goddess. Her name is Maya, right? And the title gets the name from her plan. She hatches this grand plan to basically ensnare John into her quest, and that's her gambit, right? And it's a risk that she takes because she's putting her life on the line. And so they don't get to even begin on that quest because they have immediate things that have to be dealt with in the book, and that's where that stuff came in that I mentioned. Learning at the con that you have to have an end. The first book needs to have a conclusion, and so I had to change things, and boy, it's got a conclusion. It's pretty. I think it's the last quarter of the book, the last 30,000 words or so, is nothing but the last battle. It's just one giant action thing after the next, bam, 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 and. So anyway, the second book is the beginning of them, the heroes as they come to be. This party of five, John, Maya, and the others. They have to go off on this quest, and it's actually kind of cool because even though it was originally based on the story I told my son, it's changed so much. In 2016, when I was first playing with the draft. Which I've since scrapped and rewritten, we went on vacation to do research for this series of books. And it was kind of cool because, vacations are fun regardless, right? But I was there to do research and not just enjoy myself. And we went to Belize and we went to Mexico. And I started forming some, I got places and locations and cenotes and, jungle vibes and howler monkeys and all this kind of stuff from just being there. But then what really got me going was the graffiti I found in Tulum, Mexico. There was graffiti everywhere of one of the characters from their ancient Mayan mythology. I believe his name is Kukulkan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The Aztecs called him Quetzalcoatl, right, the feathered serpent. And there's these pictures of this Mayan god on buildings, and he's always in a spaceship. He's always depicted in a spaceship, and obviously, according to the mythology, he left, and he left the people, the Mayans, and he said, "I will return." And unfortunately, I believe, I could be wrong here, but my understanding is that when visitors from the New World came, the indigenous peoples thought their god was returning to them. Cortez was not a god; he was a conqueror, but that made his conquering a lot easier because they basically just rolled out the red carpet for him. So I started thinking. I saw this graffiti of this god in a spaceship, and and obviously people there had already, they were having fun with their own mythology and dabbling into the ancient astronaut stuff. And I just took that and ran with it. And the feathered serpent, it was this idea of a snake, and well, then I started thinking about Eden, the snake in the garden, and I went to some pretty, I guess I would have to say, blasphemous places as a Christian. So I put an afterword in the book saying, look, this is fiction. This is not what I believe. Okay. Lucifer is not some misunderstood guy. Trust me.
When you read When the Gods Fell, remember what you just said. Okay.
It's not meant to be a statement on theology by any means.
A friend of mine read the first 2 chapters originally of that book, and his first response was, "Are you trying to start the next holy war?" And I went, "What?" And he goes, "Well, the way you've got this written, I mean, you got to be careful." So I kind of took his advice to heart and took one character out, just because the more I thought about it, it's like, I don't want that hassle anyway. But I mean, a lot of people are mentioning, well, you've got this God mentioned, you got this God mentioned, you made them these human beings. And it's like, well, keep reading, get to the end.
Right.
Yeah, they are, but no, they're not. I mean, it's going to make hopefully sense at the end. But yeah, you got to tread carefully when you start getting into the different religions and cultures. You want to tell your story, but at the same time, you don't want to step on enough toes that people are going to come see you.
Right. I wouldn't, even though I know it's fiction, I wouldn't recommend the goddess to my friends at church. I'm like, hey, it's not Christian fiction, right? I'm a Christian and it's fiction, but it's not Christian fiction. It's just fun. It's not meant to be taken seriously. A lot of guys at work in the oil field, they're not. A lot of them aren't big readers, but they've showed me a lot of love, and they're buying my book, and they ask, what's it like, what's it about, and without going into too many details, my go-to is like, well, do you like the Marvel movies, the Avengers, Thor, that kind of stuff? It's not so much Captain America, but definitely like the Thor movies, and like that's the closest I can compare what Goddess Gambit and its sequels are like. It's that kind of level of over the top, gods versus robots and people hitting things with hammers and mecha and aliens and just over the top action, explosives, unrealistic. It's not realistic stuff. Right. One of the characters, Lucy, she's a cyborg who looks like the Santa Muerta. She's like the Days of the Dead ladies, with the skull and painted face. And so she looks like this Day of the Dead lady, but she's a cyborg, and she's got macuatls, these Mayan war clubs. The Mayans and the Aztecs, they had these clubs they're like a flat paddle, and they had little pieces of obsidian embedded in it, and they were showing it off to Cortez and how powerful their warriors were, and they beheaded a horse with a single strike. Some strong guy came out with a macuatl and he beheaded a horse with it. So these things are no joke, and she's got a futuristic version of them made out of high carbon steel or something like that, and she cuts a bullet in half, right? I mean, just that's what I mean. It's not realistic. The guy shoots at her and she, it's about as realistic as an anime, But
that's what people with When the Gods Fell is. It's fiction. It's basically, you mentioned the ancient aliens and astronauts. That's kind of what prompted it. That and the photo of the woman on Mars that they found
holding up that planet.
Yeah, I'm not saying that that's exactly. I'm not saying that yes, that's true, and yes, all the ancient. It's just what if it were, and here's how it would be.
Right. Just fun. I know you had some fun with theology in Escaping Infinity.
Yeah.
At the end there. Can I give that away or
no? Go ahead. I mean, it's
okay.
It's one of the selling points is
the New Jerusalem, how the city comes down, and
yeah. I mean,
it's like cool. That's a neat spin. That's a neat spin.
I have had, I think, every religion. People from every religion has claimed that I grew up in their religion just based on reading that book, because I must have been indoctrinated in their religion to come up with that, right? And I'm like, no. It's just I've done my Bible studying. I'm familiar with all the different belief systems, and I just kind of wove this thing into borrowed from here, borrowed from there. But I think I'm an honorary Catholic, an honorary method. I mean, everybody. I got one person that said, "No, you were definitely in this church." Like, no, I'm not. But it just tells me people really got into the story and really enjoyed it. So that's really all I can hope for. Some people get on to me about it. They're like, "Where did this Messiah guy come from?" It's like, no, that's not what he's doing. It's more. This is what the human race could be. Thousands, not millions of years down the line, but something has occurred to advance it in this one person. We'll just, I think that's enough spoilers.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's you draw on that. Every little bit you can draw on and work into your story is only going to make the story better. Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
All right. I think we're about where we need to start wrapping up here. Why don't you let us remind us where we can find your books?
Okay. Well, they're on Amazon. They're on Amazon. They're also on Barnes & Noble's website. And I believe that's it right now. Just Amazon. We're not going wide, so you can't get it in Apple or anything like that. But if anyone's a member of the what they call that Kindle Unlimited, it is in Kindle Unlimited, so people can read it for free if they're a Prime member. And the ebook, I believe, is selling for $4.99 right now, but it's going on sale for 99 cents on the 15th. So that would be that's going to be our first promo. And the paperback is selling for, I think it was $13.49 for a week when it was selling better. And things have slowed down a little bit, and it's back up to $14.99 Amazon. I don't understand it, but yeah, Amazon and Barnes & Noble websites are both carrying it right now. And then I'm gonna have I got the publisher Jason. He mailed me like 50 copies, and I'm gonna try to get them into some local bookstores in DFW for people who live in that area. I'm gonna go up to Denton and Half Price Books and try to do some book signings there. So
there you go. You have now we're getting feedback. You have a newsletter?
I do, and it'll anyone who goes to my website bmichaelstevens.com they're going to get the pop up, subscribe, and you'll get a free story. And it's a small newsletter, but I'm working on that and trying to make it better, trying to get more opens. My open rate is pretty small right now, so I think there's a lot of people who maybe don't realize it's not showing up in their primary inbox. It might the newsletter might be showing up in their promotions or even spam folder, unfortunately. So people have to be looking for it, and want it, I suppose. But I do have a newsletter. They can sign up on my website, and if they do that, it'll mail them a copy of a short story called The Glass Forest, which is set in the same universe as the Goddess Gambit. It's the No Gods, No Masters universe, and it's actually kind of a prequel. It's not a necessary read. It's just kind of fun. One of the minor characters in that short story makes a cameo appearance in the Goddess Gambit, and one of the major antagonists is also in that short story. So it's just kind of a fun backstory, bonus for signing up for the newsletter. People can enjoy that. And Matt Margulis of Logotexture designed a new cover for that as well. And he basically just took the back cover of Goddess and played with it a little bit in Photoshop, and then made that the cover for the Glass Forest.
There you go. All right. I have no idea why we're getting the grumbling in the background, but I think we're going to wrap this up. And again, thank you for coming on, and good luck with the rest of the series. And like I said, you're off to a good start with your first one, just on the reviews and how it's selling right now. So looking forward to many more from you.
Sure. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, thanks for being on, and we're going to go cut to a couple of quick messages, and when we come back, I've got a rant I got to get off my chest, so we're going to get that and wrap this thing up. So we'll be right back.
Awesome.
Okay, everybody, we're back, and that was a great show again. Mike, thanks a lot for coming on, and best of luck on that series. It sounds like it's going to be an incredible series, 4, maybe 5 books. Can't wait. Just based on his submission to the Pluto anthology, the Paper Lantern short story, like I said, it's one of my 2 favorites in the entire 21 story collection that's coming out. Don't know yet if it's going to be the first story in the collection or not. He's running neck and neck with another story. It's a good problem for me to have. I want to address something real quick before we take off here. There has been a recent trend that I find very disturbing and very wrong, and it needs to stop, like, right now. Guys, we need to stop this. And let me tell you what this is. There is a very small, very loud minority out there who seem to think that they're gatekeepers. And they're not. Nobody died and made them god of literary. If they don't like something, fine, that's their right. That doesn't give them the right to try to shut down an author, to silence an author, to shame an author into quitting the craft. And I have seen this happen a couple of times this year alone and last year. One author just threw up her hands and quit writing. That is criminal. That should never happen. We've seen some authors recently who have pulled their debut novels because some gatekeeper thought that the book shouldn't be out, not because there's something wrong with the story, not because it's a bad story, not because it says something bad, but because the author doesn't check a box in some kind of whatever diversity checklist that has to be checked. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what your gender is. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care what your political orientation is. It does not matter. What matters is you've told a story. You have a story to share. Now, some of us will like it. Some of us won't. That's the way it works. But your story needs to be told. And it shouldn't be silenced just because you're not, white enough or black enough or male enough or female enough, whatever. I mean, we've seen it in other areas. Will Smith is being almost told he can't play a role because he is not black enough to play the father of Venus and Serena Williams in a movie. Really? I will point to Hemingway's. The Old Man and the Sea. Was Ernest Hemingway a Cuban fisherman? No, he wasn't. Does that mean we should pull The Old Man and the Sea from the shelves and burn the books? No, we shouldn't, because it's still a classic. I'm at the point where I want to throw something. There are so many examples of writers, good writers, who can tell a story from any perspective without having to actually be that perspective in their real life. A good writer can do that. The bad writers, they're the ones who are doing the griping and complaining and the moaning and groaning because they can't do what a good writer can. A good writer can do the research and tell the story right. And if you don't think I know what I'm talking about, go read Reservations, because do I look like I am a Navajo Indian? I'm not. So before I get to where you see the explodey head going here, a word to the people who want to be the gatekeepers. Stuff it and stop it. If you're a writer, if you're an author out there, do not listen to that noise. Tell your story. Share that story, because there's a lot of us out here. We want to read that story. We want to enjoy that story, and we want to hear more stories from you. We should never silence an author, because one author gets silenced for any reason, we all get silenced. And that's not right. In the meantime, readers, please keep reading, and writers, for God's sakes, please keep writing, and just ignore that garbage over there and keep walking the path of a scribe's journey. We'll see you next week, and see if my blood pressure is a little lower. Unbelievable.
This has been a Scribe's Journey with your host, Richard Palinelli, a Tuscany Bay Productions presentation.
My name is Detective Tommy Nolan, and I am a saint.